Alright, so first things first, I normally don't make these kind of videos, but given the kind of nature of the game right now and like where it's going, I figured it might be beneficial for someone like me that's been a veteran of this game for a really long time now. I think I first started playing, it was definitely closed beta testing of like when the Normandy campaign came out. I think it's in my wall posters here. Yeah, so I was a CBT player in both the Moscow campaign and the Normandy campaign. But I think the way I want this to work is I want to kind of split it up into three kind of sections. So I want to talk about the newest BR changes that just came out with this jet power update, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is like the first time they've really done a massive BR overhaul or change. They've changed some stuff like in the past, but it wasn't like on a scale that it is now. Second thing I want to talk about is probably the game balance, like where it stands currently. Um, I think there's like some kind of confusion about like the Jets, and are we going to see like a BR6 in the future? Um, I think the game balance itself is a different issue. It's not necessarily the vehicles, and I'll kind of go into more detail about that later. And then the last and final thing I want to talk about is probably the veteran boxes, these little silver chest things, because I think they're kind of an issue, honestly, for newer players. But I'll go into more detail about that later. So first, if we take a look at the BR changes. Looks like the Soviets are up first. So the RD-44, this bad boy right here. This guy got a buff, which was a reduced dispersion when moving and shooting. I think that's like all LMGs kind of have this like weird dispersion thing with LMGs and like slightly moving. I don't know. It's like your shots will just go way off if you're just like slightly moving. I guess it's their way of kind of balancing out LMGs. But yeah, this thing definitely is one of the best LMGs in the game. I'm not sure why they decided to buff it. I mean, I'm all for it. Soviets is my favorite faction, especially BR5. But I haven't actually really used it since the update, so I can't really confirm or give my opinion too much on that. How much it's been improved, I'm not too sure, but that's pretty huge. Next is the Optomat Fedorov. Where's that? Yeah, it got a damage increase by plus 10%. Now, interestingly enough, the Fedorov, I'm pretty sure already had back in the day, a little bit a while ago, probably, it was definitely been over a year ago, maybe a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, but it already had that plus 10% damage bonus. It was already on the weapon, but they nerfed it for some reason. I don't know why, but they did end up nerfing it, and then I think they're bringing it back. I don't really see the purpose of that. I think the Fedorov was already really good. I think, I can't do math, but I'm pretty sure before it was like at 12.7 hit power. Now it's at 13.9. That actually doesn't sound right. So I don't know, but all I know is Fedorov, super good gun. And with the Fedorov, it's one of those assault rifles that kind of it makes sense. So like the Soviet tree for SMGs specifically regarding BR5, it makes sense, right? It's like you kind of have your option, like the Fedorov, highest hitting, highest damaging or assaulter weapon in the tree, but also you kind of have your choices. So you could either go with the Fedorov, which is the highest hitting, more difficult to control, although I don't think the recoil is honestly that bad. And then you have options like, okay, well, if you want a little bit more control but higher damage output than the PPS, you can use the AS-44, which is like the Soviet equivalent of the STG, in my opinion. And then if you're like, okay, I want strictly just close range, CQC combat, you throw out the old PPS H-41, and that's your bullet hose. So the Soviets do a really good job, I think, in BR5 of giving you options in BR5 without just saying, okay, this is just straight up better than this at that rate. And then, you know, we'll go into it, but eventually, like, that's kind of how I saw it, like, with Germany. But yeah, anyways, super good gun. Don't really know why they did it. They gave it another additional 10% damage increase, but is what it is, I guess. The ABT and ABS, they received some reduced visual recoil. Yeah, I don't know. The AVT and the ABS, they're really good, but just unlike I'll just jump in the game real quick in the practice squad and concentrate. But the AVT and the ABS, they're really, really strong guns for BR5, but I think the FG42, Type E automatic, and whatnot I think they're better, which, I mean, I don't think they need to be on par with different, like, not all nations are extremely equivalent. So, this got I'm not sure if that's, like, the actual movement of the weapon itself when it's firing, and, like, whenever you do fire, I don't know if it's causing, like, the gun to actually kind of more stabilize itself. I think that's just recoil in general. I think it's like, it might be something to do with, like, the camera shake. I'm not sure. It's good. It's a good gun, but, like, compared to the German FG42, I think this gun is just way better. I don't think, yeah, I do have some, but yeah, I think the FG42-2, which is important to know, the FG42-2 is much better. I don't think the FG42-1 is very good at all. I think it's actually really bad, but I don't know, to me, it's a little bit more easier to control. And as far as, like, select fire rifles go, Soviets, I think, have kind of the weakest. But that's fine, because honestly, there's nothing wrong with the ABT. I think it's definitely good enough to go hand to hand with the FG42-2, and that's really, I think, pretty much all you can ask for. Same with the ABS-36. The ABS-36 has, like, a weird, I don't know, it's got, like, a weird sight to me, and it's got a little bit worse recoil than AVT. But I don't really run these guns in BR5 just because of all the event squads that I have. I don't really use them too much, but yeah. So the Maxim Tokarev looks like it got a speed bonus when running. That's really the only, besides that dispersion, when talking about light machine guns, the sprint speed for them, kind of like limiting your mobility, is like really the only drawbacks of LMGs also. And kind of boosting the Maxim Tokarev a little bit. I never used this gun. I researched it, but honestly, I just never used it. I think I have one that's actually upgraded somewhere. I don't use them. There's honestly, there's three LMGs that really don't use. DT-29. I've been kind of playing around with them in BR4, but haven't really used them too much. And then the DPM, it was just way too similar to the DP-27 to me, so I was like, I never actually really tried it out. And then the Tokarev, also the horizontal recoil on the Tokarev kind of threw me off when it was first released. I think they changed it and they buffed it a little bit, but it's been a while. The PPD, so now we're talking about, like, the actual BR changes themselves and where they fall. So the PPD 40 actually went back down to 4. Looks like it was 5. So it was competing with the PPS H-41, Fedorov, and the AS-44. I don't know. I don't really think it's that big of a deal, because when you're talking about BR4, you just have such a high chance of getting up tiered anyways. And that was like my biggest complaint. That was my biggest complaint with like the Corrali, for example. This was BR5, and I'll talk about that whenever that shows up. But like for a while, like if you did like a strict BR4 lineup, the chances of you getting up tier to BR5 was ridiculously high anyways, that I just don't really think it was too much of an issue. And I think right now with like the Jets especially, and a lot of people are playing BR5, I think if you do a strict BR4 loadout, you're going to get up tiered a lot anyways. So 4 and 5, you know, I mean, I don't really think there's too much of a difference there, to be honest with you. But it does open up some more options if you want to do straight up BR4 gameplay, which is kind of nice. So yeah, it's definitely better than the PPD 34. It's got like 100 more fire rate. Looks like a little bit less horizontal recoil, and like a minimal damage increase. So definitely weaker to PPSH 41, but not too much in that regards too. Also, it's only about 100 rate of fire off or difference. So yeah, interesting choice. So the SU-85M. I'm not a very big vehicle guy. I strictly mainly only play infantry, with the exception of aircraft. I just learned how to deal with tanks using aircraft, so I just go in, take care of the tank, get out of the vehicles. So I can't really talk too much about vehicles. I do know this was BR5, but I think a lot of the problems like all these tank destroyers have is, I mean, they don't have a turret, so you're already limited on where you can move and how easy it is to be tracked in this game in the first place. I mean, all it takes is literally an AT rifle to knock out one of your tracks, and if your gun can only be facing a certain way, that's going to be a huge problem for you. So I think honestly, I think all of the tank destroyers need to get down tiered, and I think they did quite a few of them, but there's some, I know specifically after reading like through Reddit and on the forums, I know the Stug series is kind of still screwed, but we'll talk more about that later on. The IS-1 went down to 4. Yeah, just looking at the options here, I do have the where's it at? I think the Soviet best BR5 tank is probably the T-34-100. Where is it? Yeah, it's in this squad. Yeah, I think this is the best BR5 tank. But if we just look at BR5 for the Soviets, it's the IS-2 series and up. So it's the IS-2 and it's the IS-2 1944. They both have really, really big cannons, 122 millimeter. So yeah, I guess this kind of makes more sense to me to put this in 4. And like I said before, I don't think people realize that you're just so likely to get up tiered anyways that I don't really think this is a huge issue. Okay. Now, if you take this and move this down to BR2, okay, then, or BR3, then that becomes an issue. But from going from 5 to 4, I don't think is too insane, in my opinion. It does have a lot better armor than T-34-85, so I guess this is, if you want to do a strict BR4 loadout, I think this is going to be your go-to tank now. It's going to be the IS-1. And then the Yak-9T went from 4 to 3. Yak-9T, so this plane here. So it's got a nose 37 mil cannon and how many machine guns? So there's the nose cannon. Is that a singular? I see a singular machine gun, I think. There's not more than one, so I'm gonna I think there's a singular 37 mil nose cannon and a machine gun. Um, that's interesting to note that they took that down to BR3 because actually, in fact, my favorite plane in the whole game is actually this guy right here, the Yak 9K. And the reason why it's my favorite plane in the game is because, like I said earlier, when I'm playing as a plane, my main focus is like a tank is annoying me. So I'm hopping in a plane and I'm gonna go kill him. That's essentially what I do. Tank hunter. Whenever I do play aircraft, which is quite frequently, and then I'll kind of go into it a little bit more detail. But I think certain nations have a problem with that. It's specifically Japan, and I'll talk about that later. But yeah, the 45 millimeter nose cannon in this plane with the machine gun. I mean, you just absolutely pop every single vehicle, BR3 and lower, all the Panzer IVs. And it's funny. It's because it really depends on like who you're playing against. So like this plane is very good against Germany because Germany specifically loves to spam out vehicles. So I mean, there's been matches where I've gotten 15, 16 vehicle kills in this plane alone, just because the amount of Panzer IIIJs and Panzer IVs and Panzer IIINs that just keep spawning over and over and over again. So yeah, this one I could definitely see why it was a little bit of a. It's got a smaller cannon than this one for dealing with tanks. One machine gun with only 200 rounds is really rough too, so I could definitely see them justifying bringing that down to 3. The RM40, I'm gonna assume that's a mortar. Yeah, went from 3 to 2. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about mortars. Mortars and flamethrowers right now for me are kind of like in this weird spot. They can be good. I've used like mortars to completely clear an objective before, but it's just one of those niche things that like it's kind of the same reason why I don't play tanks. If I'm playing a tank, I'm not on the point, so I'm kind of just trusting my team will take it, and for the most part of the time, I don't trust my team at all to do anything. So that's why I play so aggressively and on the point like all the time. So this going down from 3 to 2, I mean, I guess okay. I don't really know. I think the only thing with like some of the mortar systems and why they're in certain BRs is the caliber, so like the size, which impacts the like the HE distribution and like how far the shrapnel can actually down or wound somebody. So like obviously the bigger ones are going to be in the higher BRs. These actually can take out vehicles, I'm pretty sure, from the top, whereas like these low tier BR1s, I don't think they can really damage tanks in late BRs. Maybe I'm wrong. I actually don't know too much, but I'm pretty sure the low BR1s can't. So yeah, that's a cool change, I guess. The good old Madsen. Getting a reduced horizontal recoil control. BR2 Soviets is like one of my favorite things to play when the merge happened, and man, oh man, the Madsen was just still is probably the worst LMG in the game. When the Gold Order RPK, oh man, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to find it because I don't ever use them anymore. Let's see. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm gonna be able to find them. Yeah, well, here's one right here. This was just like so much better when it came out. It was really your only option for an LMG if you wanted to play strictly BR2 Soviets. So I ended up buying 4 of these with the Gold Orders, and this is what I was using. This is just, even though it's only got a 15 round mag, it's just leagues better than Madsen. Definitely needed a horizontal recoil decrease, so in my opinion, it's a good change. But I don't know. I still think it's a garbage gun. So the PTRS 41 went from 2 to 1. Now this is interesting. I guess mainly they saw this because once the Soviets got the bazooka, um, I don't know. It, I guess once the Soviets got the bazooka, they kind of thought that the PTRS was just kind of like in a weird spot, maybe on the same tier as it. That's the only thing I can really think of. But honestly, there's some situations, like for Japan, for example. Right now I'm playing, I've got a BR3 load up set up, but the Type 2 rocket launcher is, I mean, it's the best they have for BR2. This thing, you just kind of, you can't, it doesn't even have a sight, so you just kind of gotta, throw a stone at something and hopefully you hit it. But the Type 97 anti-tank rifle is BR1, but there's certain situations where I would actually rather use this over the rocket launcher, and that's for like vehicles with weird damage models. Like the a lot of times, like low US players will spam out the M13 half-track truck, and you can, I swear, sometimes you could smack that truck with all 8 or 9 of your rockets and it won't do anything to it. It's just the way the vehicle works. I mean, I don't know, but if you take a rocket round to the front of that truck or to the side, I'm pretty sure it's going to be fully interoperable, but just the way the damage model works in that truck, it's a lot easier just to take everyone out with the AT rifle. So that's kind of what I'm thinking with the bazooka and the PTRS 41. Yeah, I think ideally you would probably mostly want to use this, but there might be some situations where the PTRS is a little bit better. So, interesting choice. Two of them I'm just going to skip. The Mosin, two of the Mosin carbines, Mosin rifles. I think all of these Mosins are just really bad. They're just probably the worst bolt actions in the game, to be honest. With the exception of this, and it's not even a bolt action rifle, it's a lever action from the US. So this is goated. This is god tier. BR2, best quote unquote bolt action, if you want to call it that. But their other bolt actions are just, they're I don't know. They looks like they nerfed some of them, took them down to BR1. I don't know. Don't really care because this is what you want to use anyways. And then for event, I actually have one of these. The event squad, this one in particular got a buff. So this rifle got a rate of fire increase, a little over 100, and that's actually pretty huge. So this gun shoots a lot faster now, and is honestly probably one of the most controllable guns in the game. It's an absolute laser beam, and the fact that it got 100 rate of fire increase is kind of wild, but I think it needed it to kind of make it stand out a little bit more. The PPK 42 don't have that, so I can't talk about that. PPSH 45, which is that weird skeleton looking PPSH 41 that was in the battle pass. I never bought that one. That was one of the battle passes I did not participate in because I didn't really care about that gun. I'm like, yeah, why would I use that? And just use PPS for H41. And then two premium squads got BR adjusted, which is the Fedorov MG, which is, where is it at? I have it. That's why it's not showing up. This was actually really goated to use. Yeah, here it is. This is actually really goated to use in Moscow, because you could buy this straight up if you're like even if you're like level campaign level 5 in Moscow and you wanted to grind out Moscow, you could just buy these guys. This gun's really good. It's Fedorov with less recoil, and it got the same damage increase that the Fedorov did. I think it has, I want to say it has less, yeah, sprint factor is 70% because it's classified as an MG, and I think yeah, so you get 30% less speed when running with this, and they actually dropped this down to BR4, which is interesting. So now you could really play with the Fedorov at BR4 if you made a strict BR4 loadout, which is kind of cool and interesting to think about. This is actually probably really, really good in BR4, honestly. Belt-fed DP also went down from 5 to 4. I think they wanted to kind of buff these in a way. I guess maybe they weren't being used as much. And if you look, there's really no belt-fed options at 4, so moving that down to 4 kind of seems like it makes sense. And then I don't have it, but the M4 A276, so the Lend-Lease Shermans with the 76, looks like it was dropped down from BR5 to 4. That makes sense to me. I don't think there's really any US 76 tank that needs to be BR5. And actually now the only one is the Jumbo 76, so that makes sense. I'm cool with that. Germany, JU 188 A2. This one right here. I was using this in BR4. It's got a lot of bombs. It's carrying 250 kilograms, which is really nice for taking out multiple tanks. And because of the way they changed the ordnance drop, you can drop singular bombs now. It makes it to where you can go for a sweep, drop 3, turn around, and as you're on your way back to rearm, you can drop another 3. So that's cool. It's pretty solid plane. You don't have actually access to any guns. You can't shoot any yourself, but you have like a lot of AI. And is there a tail gunner in this? I don't know. But there is AI that'll shoot, protect your rear for you. It going to 5 though, I don't know. I don't really think it was a problem in 4, but because one of the equivalents I can think of off the top of my head is the TU-2S. Yeah. It's kind of got the similar bomb load, except it only has one rear-facing gunner, but you actually have like an offensive armament. So this is, in my opinion, just straight up better than the J188. But I don't know. Maybe they had a reason to put it in 5. With jets, though, I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense, but it is what it is. Corrali. Now, this was a big one that I advocated for and was trying to get them to listen to me and change. This was BR5. Now, this gun is it's good. It's a very good gun. Very, very good gun. I just don't think it was BR5 competitive enough. Shot really fast, right? That's one of the things for BR5s that they like to argue is high rate of fire, good mag size. But the problem with the Corrali is it's just one of the most difficult guns to control. SMGs wise, it's got quite a bit of recoil, and this is the problem with any weapons into BR5 that they have to essentially make sense at the very end of the spectrum. So this thing being BR5 just did not make any sense because the STG-44 exists, right? So the STG-44 does more damage, it's way more controllable, has 10 less rounds, but is literally an assault rifle. So I think this gun was not very used at all in BR5, and actually I never really ever saw it in BR5. So it going down to 4 definitely makes sense. I tried saying that for a while, needed to go down. But because they moved that down, they also moved down the Beretta M38A, the 40 rounder, which I actually really liked. When I was grinding out the Berlin campaign, back when campaigns were, actually a thing, this was a really solid SMG for Germany, because I think it went like MP35, I think this one, straight to this, if I'm not mistaken. I do know you started off with this, and this thing is just trash. So this is like the first real SMG that Germany got in Berlin. That was really fun to use. I think this is a very, very good gun, and this going down to BR3 is kind of wild, because this being BR3 now makes this to me obsolete. I just think this is just better than this now, and the same with. No, this is BR2. Interesting. Yeah. So the Beretta, the 40 round Beretta, this one is actually BR2. And this is another BR3 SMG, but I think this is just going to be king of the crop now. It's got a really good fire rate. I'll actually have them on this. Really good fire rate, great sights, great reload speed, and it just shreds. It's just as you can see, like 2 or 3 of those were pretty far off, but for the Germans, and it's Italian, so gotta love it. Panzer IV-H went down from 4 to 3. To me, that kind of makes sense, just because it's 4 Golf and a J already in there, and they have similar armor, and they looks like they have the same gun too. It looks like this one's a little bit longer, but yeah, this makes sense. There was absolutely zero reason to use this over Panther and BR4, so to drop this down to 3, don't have an issue with that at all. I think it's a pretty smart choice. The BF-110G2. Now this one is interesting because this was kind of a staple. This is a staple for BR3 Germany. If you ever played BR3 Germany, this was like a staple plane. I think that they said their reasoning for it was the rockets were too strong. I don't really think so, and that's somebody that played this and played against it many, many times. I don't think its rockets were too strong at all. You only get 4. What I really loved about flying this was this bottom 37 gun. You could really do some like top-down attacks on tanks with this and take out tanks like the KV-1. This could actually, if you did a top-down, this could actually kill a KV-1 with just the guns, which was pretty fun. But yeah, having a 37mm, 2 30s, and 2 machine guns, I don't think this thing needs to be BR4. I think it should have stayed in BR3 because it wasn't really too much of an issue, in my opinion, anyways. And then these other BF-110s still stayed in 3, so now they don't have a 37mm gun, and they don't have 2 other additional 30s, but they have really good offensive armament still, and they have 250 kilogram bombs. So I don't know, definitely a nerf in the wrong direction for that plane, in my opinion. And then the Beretta M3842, I think that's what I was confused about, because typically this gun was already 3 for me, because I was using this in 3, I think, alongside the ZK. So I don't know why they put this down in 2. This is actually a really good SMG for BR2. Now I'm thinking about it, because it's got a 40 round. So now, yeah, so like, in my opinion now, this being fully upgraded, there's just no reason to use MP40. Yeah, might sound crazy to say, but if you've fully researched the tree and whatnot, now there's no reason to use the MP40, which is kind of crazy because MP40 is kind of like a staple SMG. There's nothing wrong with using them until you get there, and I guess if like you're grinding out the tree, you can actually probably just skip this, honestly, in general. But if you're playing 2 and you want to go to 3 and you want to stick around in 3 for a while, I would say I'll actually probably skip all of these and then probably buy this and upgrade these. Honestly, that's probably what I would do. FW190A4. a lot of these German planes I've never really used. This I know was absolutely god tier at BR1, and it's still extremely strong into BR2. That got kind of nerfed. It went from BR1 to 2, which again I don't really think is a huge issue, big deal. Where's the FW190W? Falco Wolf. Ah, here it is. So this went from, what was it, 3? Yeah, 3 to 2. Wait, is that the A4? Yeah. Okay. Sure. I'm not gonna talk too much about this. I don't really know. It looks like it's a solid. Is this an attacker? It labels as attacker or fighter? Doesn't have rockets or bombs, so I'm gonna say fighter. I don't know, but interesting, cool, I guess. Panzer IIIN. Now this thing was incredibly freaking annoying to deal with. Incredibly annoying. It definitely needed a nerf. If there's anything this whole entire BR change needed to address, it was this freaking tank right here. This thing being BR2 was just incredibly annoying. I swear people had lineups of 3 of these, even though I know it's not possible. But yeah, this thing was incredibly annoying to deal with. I never tanked really against it, so I didn't really care. I would just go around, throw TNT on it, or take it out with Panther 60 on the sides. But I do know it was a menace, definitely a menace. Just lobbing HE on a point over and over and over again. This tank definitely gave some people some struggles in BR2. So I went to 3, and honestly, I could care less. Yeah, good. I'm glad. I'm glad they nerfed it. It was just annoying, super annoying to deal with, and they up tiered it. They also removed its HE, if I'm not mistaken. They took its HE out, added a heat. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said before, yeah, the IAR. This was also up tiered from 1 to 2, which is not a huge deal in my opinion. MP3008. So this trash SMG went from BR2 to BR1. Cool. This thing still is trash, so try to skip it if you can. Carcano M1891. Not really going to go through too much of these. 2 to 1. Okay, it's bolt action. Not much else to say about it. Panzer IIN. Looks like the legacy one. I wonder if that's the Stalingrad one. I think it is. Vent FG42 with the grenade launcher, paratrooper. I don't have that, but it looks like its ammo count got increased to 100. Cool. The Luftfaust B, which is that weird anti-air launcher, got its BR reduced from 5 to 4. I've seen it. Where is it? It's in here, isn't it? Yeah, here it is. Went from 5 to 4. Okay. I don't know. I think this gun is just so rare to see this thing that I don't know how you really balance it, to be honest with you, because I don't think that it's not very common to even see one of these. So Irma EMP44. I'm trying to remember which one that was. I think that was an S. I know it was an SMG, but I'm not honestly too sure what that was. It went from 4 to 3. That's good. The VMP 1926 went from 4 to 3. So some of these older Battle Pass guns looks like they got a buff. And in the German, this is an interesting one. So I have one of these. Where is it? This was actually one of my favorite. Yeah, here it is. This is one of my favorite SMGs. So this was BR3, and I thought it was really solid. Now it's BR2. It's got 36 round mag, good rate of fire, really controllable recoil. Yeah, this thing being on BR2 now is kind of wild, but it's an old legacy like gold order weapon. So I mean, you're not going to be running around seeing this very often, anyways. So yeah, this gun right here, it's got the weird wacky curd magazine. If I'm not mistaken, this is pretty solid. I think honestly it was fine in 3, but they buffed it, so cool. The Lati M26. That's the, okay, I know what that is. That's the other Finnish LMG. Looks like you got a faster ADS speed, and that's it. Still stays in 2. Still stays in 2. It's actually a pretty solid LMG. I like it. It's pretty fun. STG 45. It's a premium Salter, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even know where it's at. It's probably one of those legacy ones. I don't have it. I never bought it, but went from 5 to 4. I guess they're trying to go on par with the Fedorov. I think, was it worse than the STG 44? Might have been slightly worse, so that might have been their judgment on moving it down to 4, which is cool. Premium Corelli 43M squad went from 5 to 4. I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen that squad before. In the TZ45, this squad looks like it went down. No, stayed in 3, but just has reduced tours on rig wheel. Don't know too much about the squad or this gun. Honestly, never used it. And the Panzer 3N, yeah, removed HE. Okay, so that sums up Germany. They kind of got shafted, honestly, with that plane going from 3 to 4, and one of their tanks looking like got completely up tiered to 3 now. So yeah, Germany got the worst of this, in my opinion, by far. So U.S. Thompson 50 looks like it got a reduced horizontal recoil. I don't know. I don't know what to say about the Thompsons. All the Thompsons are just kind of, I don't know. They're weird. Like these being in 4 are just, they're all right. They're okay SMGs. But if we look at 4 and we compare them to PBD 40, there's just no comparison. I think this is way better. And then if we look at Germany now, the Corelli, I think it's a little bit better. And then the Arsenal is definitely better than the Thompsons. So Thompsons is just kind of sitting in a weird spot. And before the Hyde came out, this was really early assaulter options. These 3 were competing against STG 44s, which was just not a competition, right? And like I said before, because these are 4, you're going to see 5 a lot. So I don't know. But this one getting its horizontal recoil reduced is nice. Does it mean I'll use it more often? Probably not. I just don't think the Thompsons are really that great. They're okay. But now the ones in 3 are good. And then obviously this one got down tier to 2, which is huge. But being at 3, Thompson's SBR3 is solid. I think honestly, probably all 3 of these could be BR3 to be honest with you. And it wouldn't be too much of an issue. But at the same time, it kind of makes sense that they're in 4. So I don't know. Thompsons are just kind of in a weird spot. 50 rounder is definitely you get way more mag capacity than the other ones, so it'd be in BR5. That makes sense. I don't have a problem with it. Browning M1919A6. So good old belt-fed American M1919 30 cal machine gun. Got a movement speed buff. That's cool. Don't really know if it needed it, but awesome. M1C Grand went from 5 to 4. Yeah, this was one of my, like, why is this thing BR4? Why is it even BR4? I don't understand why it's BR4, to be honest with you. Like, why would you use this when the Sniper M1 Grand's BR3? And especially at 5 made absolutely no sense to use at all. So It hits harder, looks like, almost by an entire point, but okay, cool. It's a BR, it's a M1 gram to scope. Went from 5 to 4. Nothing too crazy about that. M4A276W. Went from 5 to 4 again. That's what I was talking about. I don't think any of the regular Shermans with the 76 should have been BR5 to begin with. They need to be BR4. Now the AP4C, so the Corsair went from BR4 to 5. This kind of makes sense. Corsair was just so solid. It was such a good plane. Being up tiered, I don't think too many people are unhappy about that change. Kind of makes sense. Because most of the time before Jet came out, I mean, these ran in a pair anyways. You had the Corsair and you had the P47. That's what you ran if you have premium and all squad slots and whatnot. M10 GMC. So this 76 open top tank destroyer went from 4 to 3. So this actually makes sense to me. This is what I was kind of talking about the stugs and whatnot. Like a lot of the tank destroyers needed to be down tiered. Any of them that are in BR4 need to probably go to 3, just because of how they're just a worse option overall instead of the tanks that have turrets on them. So this being on 3 makes sense. Now, should you use this over the Sherman 105? I don't know. Maybe not. Probably not. Pretty sure this tank also has a really bad turret traverse rate, meaning the turret moves really slowly. So, I mean, would you even use this over this or the Sherman? I don't know. Probably not. But yeah, it's in 3 now, so that's cool. It's nice. One of the Thompsons, yeah, this one they reduced the horizontal recoil again. Like I said, like Thompsons they're good, but to me they just have too much recoil for no reason at all. I don't understand why they have as much recoil as they do. But looks like this one got a horizontal recoil buff, so that's nice. Great to see that. And then this one, this is big. So this Thompson being in BR2 now is huge, because your only options for if you wanted to do a BR2 US loadout was Lanchester, which is a good gun. It's a solid SMG, or the Grease gun. But now that they actually have a Thompson in BR2, like that's pretty solid. That actually makes BR2 should be more appealing to veteran players. I don't know if it will be, but it should make it definitely way more appealing, because you could go in 3 assault squads with Thompsons now, which is pretty fun, pretty nice. This actually might be a little bit too strong for BR2. I think like a lot of these Thompsons should be BR3, but 2, I don't know, this might be a little bit too strong for BR2. We'll see. AP1, this is a plane I've never used. It's got 2 500-pounders, pretty decent machine gun. Looks like it went from 3 to 2. Now, some of these planes I won't use, and I'll go more into detail about that, like for the game balance section of this video. But some of these planes I won't use because I think this is classified as, it's a carrier-based bomber, right? And that's I'll go more into detail about that later, but I won't use that specifically for that reason. The Vickers paratrooper squad, this one. I thought this gun was garbage. I got this when they did the paratrooper event. I thought this gun was trash. It's a 100-round LMG that you sprint really slowly with, and it had stupidly high recoil. It was really dumb high, and it being BR5, I thought it was an absolute trash gun. So I actually completely did not use this squad at all, and only used the premium one. So that definitely needed a buff, because it was just absolutely garbage. And minus 20% recoil, so it did see quite a bit of a recoil buff, along with reduced horizontal and visual recoil, so that makes sense. Sten Mark II-S, that suppressed cool squad that I don't have yet, really want. I only have a couple left, but it's, I think this one, yeah. Went from 2 to 1. Again, this is like one of those guns where I don't think, yeah, the regular stand is BR1, but does this need to be BR1? This is a whole squad of fully suppressed guys. I think it did completely fine in BR2, honestly. You get buffed or nerfed down to BR1. I don't know. Don't think so. The Austin Mark I, which is that other funky looking Sten. I think this is an Australian squad. I don't know where it's at. Yeah, it's this one here. Yeah, again, cool. BR1, BR2. I don't know. It doesn't really make a difference. I don't think. Into a one rifle. That was the Gold Order M2 carbine, or no, that was the Battle Pass one. Was the Battle Pass one? I can't remember. Looks like it's got a recoil control fix, so now it's the same as the M2. Great, cool. S&W light rifle, never used it. Mosquito FB Mark, whatever that is. I don't know what that is. This thing looks like it went from 4 to 3. That's pretty cool, actually. It's got pretty good bomb load, really good cannons. So that being BR3 is pretty solid. It's a pretty big buff for that squad. Boomerang Mark 1 or Mark 2, I mean. I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you. Boomerang. I think it might not even be on here. Yeah, I don't know what that is. But got a BR boost or BR buff. Infield P14T from 2 to 1. Yeah, I don't know. It's not on here, so I can't really talk about that. And then the Founders squad, which I actually have, went from 2 to 1, which this I think is necessary. I think BR like this thing is just really bad. I know a lot of people want it, but this M2 hide is just really garbage. So it going down to 1 makes sense. Yeah, it's just got pretty slow fire rate, 20 round mag, weird recoil, and very slow bullet velocity. So it going down to 1 I don't think is going to be a huge issue, mainly because there's probably not a lot of people that have it anyways. So Japan, this is what I've been kind of recently trying out. So the Type 4, yeah, this went from 4 to 3. This makes sense in my opinion because it's basically M1 Garand essentially. It's got 2 more rounds that it can hold, but it also, the drawback to it is that it's stripper clip fed, so you have to load 2 stripper clips. So I think that kind of balances it out with the M1 Garand. M1 Garand has 2 less bullets, but honestly I'd probably rather have M1 Garand over this. But it being going from 4 to 3 actually makes sense now, especially with Japan's BR battle rankings. So if you're playing BR3, you are not going to be up tier to 5 or 4 at all, which is nice. And that only specifically works for Japan, if I'm not mistaken. Then we got the DR4Y1 or whatever it's called. Let's see, I think that is this one here. Yeah. So this went from 4 to 3. I'm gonna talk about Japan's. I'm gonna talk about Japan's aircraft issues and vehicle issues in general later, but that's cool. Type Otsu went from 3 to 2. Yeah, there wasn't really a good justification to use this or to have this at 3 when this was at 2. They both only have 5 round mags. They're both low damage, so this going down to 2 makes sense. Now, would you use this over one of the best bolt actions in the game, being the Arasaka 38? I don't know. I think I have them on a couple guys, but I don't really use them too much. I think the Arasaka 38 is just, I think it's just better. So it's cool. Went down from 3 to 2, so makes sense. B5N2. This is gonna be another plane. Yeah, this one from 3 to 2. This thing still sucks. So not only are you having to spawn from a carrier and get to the battle at 1949 by the time you arrive there, but also you don't have an offensive armament. You only have a tail gunner. So that being BR3 made no sense, and it still kind of sucks at BR2. So Type 99 rifle late. Went from 2 to 1. Cool. I'm not gonna go into too much detail about these. These are bolt actions. They're going from 2 to 1, which again, it's not really a huge deal in my opinion. I don't think it's too crazy. Type 100 rifle vent from 2 to 1. Battle Pass Type 1 SMG 1930. I don't think I have that. And then the premium Type 1 SMG. This one went from 3 to 2. 50 round mag. So that makes sense. Kind of like an incentive to buy this if you want a 50 round decent SMG. Instead of being BR3, it's BR2 now. So that kind of makes sense. But yeah, that's pretty much all the BR changes. The other things that I thought were interesting that they added, I've been kind of messing around with a little bit. So Soviets are already really strong BR2, but they got the Fedorov rifle, which is like one of the hardest hitting semi-autos in the game. They got it at BR2. I'm pretty sure they were the only faction. Yeah, they were the only faction that did not have a BR2 semi-auto. Now, will you use it? I don't know. I'd say use a couple of them, see how you like them. But the Winchester M1895 exists, so do you use it? I don't know. Give it a shot. But the Uragan SMG for Soviets BR2, this one is interesting. I think people kind of confuse this with the PPS 42 and 43 as they're so similar. They are, but fully upgraded, there's just honestly no reason to use. What does it have on these guys? Do not. Where are they? I have them on BR2. Yeah, so fully upgraded, its fire rate's 860, and its recoil is like non-existent, 26 and 8, and it goes to 6.7. Compare that to the 42, 6.7, 690, 25 and 7. So you're talking about the same damage, higher fire rate, and similar recoil. So that alone might make it better already than the PPS 42. And the thing that 42 had over the 43 was it had a higher fire rate, but now it's actually less. So the 43 is less, and 29 and 10, and has more recoil than this. So I think the Uragan now is actually the best BR2 SMG, in my opinion. I think it's definitely better than both of these if you fully upgrade them. If you don't, I'm not too sure. But it being BR2, I've used it. Its sights are really, really nice. I really like the sights. It's like a mix between the MP40 and like PPS 42. Yeah, but it's got really good clean sights and control, especially for a BR2 SMG. And it's got fast. I don't see the purpose of using the 42 or 43 anymore. But it's one of those guns you can definitely skip to if like you're still grinding out Soviets or you're still grinding out other nations and you don't want to spend too much silver into it. I can definitely see or get a reason for you skipping it. Japan finally got a decent rocket launcher. Now it's one of those it's one of those AT launchers from Germany because I guess they didn't want to add a BR4 launcher from Japan. Whatever, fine, it needed it because this thing was just hot garbage. I mean, this thing is already it's okay in BR2. It's not good in BR3. And this thing, Japan needed it. Needless to say, they needed a decent AT launcher, higher BR, and they got this. So that's what we got. Can't really complain about it. It is what it is. Germany got another MG, the AMG 81. I messed around with this in the test server. It's got a stupid high fire rate, 1600. It's belt fed, but it's pretty. I think it's pretty hard to control a little bit. I don't know. I don't really know why they got another MG, to be honest with you. They already have two BR5 SM or LMGs. This is still really good. I don't know why you would use this over this, but this is what it is. This is also still really bad. Terrible dispersion. Too stupid high fire rate for its mag size. So, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And obviously the jets and everything else. And we will kind of talk about the jets and whatnot in the game balance section of this video.
Okay, the second part of this video is going to sound really weird. I'm trying to, after recording the first section, wow, that was an hour long. I definitely did not mean to spend that long on that part. And I'm using a different headset now. This mic is actually pretty bad on this headset, so I might sound pretty weird. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of this headset. Shout out HyperX, Cloud Flight S's. But anyways, so the next part of this video I wanted to talk about, and I'm gonna do timestamps down below so people can just skip me going on for an hour about my thoughts on VR changes. But the second part of this video I wanted to talk about was the game balance. Now I know I've seen some people talk about how strong the jets were and how strong they are, how fast they're able to rearm, whatnot, yada yada yada. They're BR5. Oh no, um, I can't fly my P38 and BR5 anymore. It's still nonsense. I still think you can. But anyways, my biggest so there it's kind of it kind of starts off really at the new player level. The game balance kind of has this issue where there's two factions that cross my mind as having kind of like that the more veteran presence is going to be Germany and Japan. Now, the reason why is different for different reasons. So BR5 Germany is just it's not actually leagues better than BR5 US. It's not leagues better than BR5 Soviets, and it's not leagues better than BR5 Japan. But if you look at the way the tree is set up and how much content and filler there is in this tree, you're going to see that it's going to take somebody a lot longer to get to this end game section of Germany than it is for somebody like that plays the Soviets. And this is kind of something that I kind of encourage people to do too, is like if you want to try out like what high level BR gameplay is like in the game and you want to get to that late war stuff, I actually don't recommend playing Germany because I mean just look at the SMG line alone. You're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. There's 19 SMGs alone just in Germany's um, tree. So that means it's going to take you a lot longer to actually get there. So, and that's another part of this. The problem is like the veteran player base in this game, if they're playing BR5 Germany, they are going to have been playing for a long time if they're rocking full squads of this stuff. So, kind of the next part of this, and this is like I see this way too often, and is kind of like that fun factor that people have when thinking about buying premium squads. And this is just like, it's way too common to see this, honestly. But for a long time, people thought that the U.S. was underperforming BR5, and they were. They were for reasons like before the T20 and the Hyde, and definitely before the Pershing and Super Pershing. They definitely struggled in the infantry weapons category when compared to the other nations. That's for sure. But um, we're talking about a time too when U.S. is just going to be one of those noob, or I don't want to say noob. I want to say newer player um, appeal, right? So like newer players, they're going to see this game and they're going to want to play with the Thompson, right? But then they have to kind of grind out to get to it. Um, but the premium squads that people just have access to and purchase straight up, I think really kind of hurts the game balance, because now you're gonna have players. I see it a lot. Um, I haven't played too much BR5 since this update, so I can't really confirm if it's like this now. And for the Soviets, it's definitely gotten better. But for this is just as an example, you're gonna have guys and you're gonna have players that literally have not even started the research on the BR2 grease gun, right? They probably don't even know. That's another thing too. I think the sniper squad should not be a starter squad. I think the engineer squad should be instead, to kind of incentivize newer players to play as an engineer. But regardless, anyways, you're gonna have people that are gonna be like in BR2 and realistically can't even really fully play BR3, and they're gonna buy the where is it? They're gonna buy like the squad, right? Like, I think the squad's really cool. It's BR5, but they get the Tommy gun, so I'm gonna play them. So now you have guys that are realistically still pretty new to the game in BR2, with maybe some BR3 guns. You know, that maybe, let's say maybe they have the Garand unlocked, right? Maybe they have this, or maybe they're working on, I don't know, this flamethrower or this Sherman. Maybe they're working on it, but they're using this right now because they don't even have this done yet. They're gonna throw that Thompson squad on because they just bought it. Hey, they just paid real money for it, so I don't blame them. They want to try it out, but they're going to be smacked into BR5. And so, what does that mean? That means that you're going to have a guy with only one squad that's actually able to compete BR5, and the rest of his squads are going to be using, guess what? They're going to be using 1903 Springfields. And then you're going to see them taking up vehicle slots with the Seagull and running tanks like the M8 Scott and the Carroll. Okay, well, these two tanks and the Seagull is not going to do absolutely anything to a Tiger 2H, and they're going to get smacked around left and right. And I saw it literally all the time. So, I think the game does kind of a bad job at incentivizing players to really maximize what it is that they're researching and what it is that they're trying to get to. And the couple ways that they did that was with the premium squads. First off, I don't know. I don't really have a solution to this, right? Um, if someone's not even really done or even started the US tree, but they just really like this tank for example, and they want to buy it, there's just no realistic way that I could think of that could kind of limit them on purchasing it and playing it, you know. But one thing that surely does not help, and I'll give you an example, is pumping out nothing but BR5 event squads. This squad, which, as a side note, is a very, very solid BR5 Soviet squad. But, you know, if they keep pumping out BR5 content like this for event squads, it's just going to further incentivize people that are really can't even play in that BR to be like, okay, well, I just got this squad, I want to try them out. And that's what causes game imbalance, in my opinion. And not to mention also the fact that, like I said, people that are grinded all the way out through this entire tree and are in BR5 for Germany and for Japan if they suffer through Japan, these players are just going to be much better than starting BR2 or BR3 allied players. Um, so that's part of it. Incentivizing players to play at a BR that they're really not able to, and I will explain later on why that's an issue with the silver box. We're just talking game balance right now. Um, and then we have things. So let's jump to Japan real quick. So Japan is notorious for having really bad vehicles. Um, Now they've done a lot of stuff, I think, to these tanks. They've lowered some of the BR ratings, but everyone that plays Japan, they kind of already have that mindset going in. They're like, okay, I'm gonna be basically outgunned in the tank department or the plane department, and that's fine. I don't think it's honestly too huge of an issue if you know how to play around it. Um, the one thing I will say is like the Ho Ri is really good. I mean, their later vehicles are actually really solid. Is this tank as good as some of the BR5 US tanks? No, definitely not. Like the Chi-Ri 2, the 75, um, it's definitely not. I don't think you could really compare it to the upgunned Jumbo or Super Pershing, right? So they're definitely going to be lacking in that compartment. But as far as like BR4 and 5 fighters go, so the Otsukai, um, I have this. I haven't bought a lot of these because I don't really play vehicles. I had them researched for a while now. Just don't buy them because I don't play them. But I had the Co. I bought the Gold Order Co. And this is actually a pretty solid aircraft too. But Japan's problem is all their planes and all their aircraft. So the thing that Japan really should rely on is their air power and their planes. And you can't that's the thing that bothers me the most about Japan is that like you can't use these planes because guess what? You're spawning from a carrier. And the carriers take like 10 years to even take off from. And then it takes you even longer than that 10 minutes to even gain the altitude that you need to be to, drop bombs. So it's just like a huge turnoff, especially when playing all the other factions, to be like, okay, well, there's a tank, and you have your 60 kilogram bombs. These really aren't going to do anything to a tank, but you're like, I want to try to go in and maybe you're using this plane, BR2, and you want to try to go do some casts, take out some tanks. Your first 2 or 3 games playing as Japan, you're going to realize that you're trying to take off from a carrier, and by the time you even get to the battlefield, the tank's either probably already gone, or you know, either you cap the point and the tank went, moved, or whatever the case is. But the point is like it decentivizes players to play aircraft as Japan specifically because of the stupid aircraft carrier mechanic system that they have. And the problem is that you can completely skip it playing as the U.S. Now the U.S. does have carrier-based aircraft like the AP-1. The Corsair's carrier-based, pretty sure, and I think the Dauntless is too. I think the Dauntless is too. Um, but if you know what you're doing and you know how to kind of cheese the system, you can completely skip it, right? You just don't play those. You just don't play those planes. You play like the P-51, or you play the other P-51 or the P-38s. And guess what? You're not spawning on a carrier, so you're able to completely skip it entirely, which is a huge issue because Japan struggles against U.S. tanks because their tanks are garbage. I mean, I'm just not gonna lie, they're pretty crap. Um, yeah, so and you want to rely on your aircraft, but you can't to take out like stuff like Shermans. Um, but you can't because you're decentivized from even flying in the game. And that is what honestly I think makes Japan such a feared like faction to go against. I think Japan's honestly like allies' worst nightmare to play against if you're playing the U.S. um, is because the player base of Japan has had to figure out, okay, well, how do I win games without relying on aircraft, right? How do I win games without relying on tanks? And that's, in my opinion, that's what makes Japan so incredibly strong in their player bases, because they've figured out how to deal with everything and still win games while solely playing just infantry, right? Their infantry weapons are not, you know, incredibly much stronger than the US's, but because the player base had to figure out how to, combat against tanks, combat against CAS from the US, that's what makes them so strong and so good. And that's why like a lot of the Japanese players are really good players, because they are forced to play infantry. Now, um, me specifically, I'm like definitely on the objective like all the time. And as you can see, like my submachine gun kill count is so high because I'm just one of those guys that just likes to be on the point the whole time. I like running infantry. I like being on the point, clearing the point. That's just what I do. That's what I like to do because that ensures that I win games. So I can definitely be seen as one of those guys that you would call a sweat. But I don't really like to be honest with you. I would like to play more chill games and kind of just meme around and snipe every once in a while. But I know if I do that, um, especially playing like BR2 US, which has a lot of newer players in it, I know if I do that, I'm going to lose games. And a lot of things that people don't realize is that if you lose games in this game, losing games, you're actually negatively impacting your progression. So it's one of the things I early figured out, and I found out without that 1.5 bonus multiplier, grinding out nations' tech trees is going to be slower if you're losing matches. So, um, if you, you know, um, if you want to progress through a faction fast, then you need to be ready to fully win like majority of your games. And my stats kind of actually, surprisingly enough, showcase that. So my lowest win rate is actually with the US, and it's because the US just really struggles with the newer players. So having to lead the teams most of the time as the US is why I'm not at that 80% mark. These are all solo games, by the way. I don't play with anyone else. I don't squad up with anybody. This is purely solo. And as you can see with my Japanese win rate, it's a lot higher than all the other ones because most of the time when I play Japan, I have really good teammates. So this is something worth note. Um, but yeah, that's my biggest issue right now with the game balance is Japan's aircraft being limited to carriers and not able to combat US's aircraft. As far as the weapons go, though, like most of the infantry weapons are pretty much on par with each other. Um, you know, certain factions' vehicles may not be as competitive as their counterparts, but I think that's honestly okay. And I think if Enlisted was to go the route of adding other factions to the game, so let's say they add, I don't know, the Finnish, for example. I think the devs kind of have their mindset that like, okay, well, if we add the Finns or we add another faction to the game, um, they need to also have BR5 equipment, which is not necessarily true, right? Um, because Japan for a long time really didn't have anything at BR5. And I think that's fine. Like if you have a matchmaking system, right? So let's say they add the Finns, but the Finns they really didn't have any late war stuff, so they only go up to BR3. I don't think there's an issue with that. I think a faction could stay at its cap at BR3 and be completely fine. They'll just play other factions at BR3 or lower. But yeah. Now, so now moving on, I'm going to talk about kind of the silver chest system and why this is kind of an issue for veterans, but it's more detrimental to new players. Alright, so last and not least, I want to talk about kind of the silver chest system and the veteran boxes that they added. First off, I am a fan of them. I think it's really good and a really good idea to kind of give some of those veteran players that have been playing the game for a while, but say they missed out on one or two squads or two or three squads, which is kind of like my case. Um, some of these squads, I was playing the game at the time, but I just didn't really care to grind them out because, like, I think this one, the squad was for Tunisia, and the same with the squad here. This is their kind of counterpart. So I never really played Tunisia. I didn't really care about it because I had my fill of playing early US and early um, Germany, and I didn't really want to redo all that over again in Tunisia. So I never got them, never picked them up. But I do think it is a good way to get players access to get these squads that they missed out on in the past. I can't see all of them because I have a lot of them unlocked, so I don't know. This list, if you're a new player, this list is a lot bigger. It's a lot longer because it has all the squads. In the vehicles, I only have like 3 left on here. It's another good way to. I know like the T-34 100 should be on there if you don't have it. Uh, the Whirlwind, or not the Whirlwind, one of the US BR3 attackers is on there too. I can't think of the name of the top of my head. Um, and it also gives you access to get some of these event weapons that you might not have been able to grind out. So, like for example, I think the Fedorov rifle. Um, Interesting. I don't think I see any of the other ones. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Oh yeah, MKB-42. Like these two guns, I think were only in one specific event, which was the one around Christmas time last year. I think it was the only time we actually saw these two guns. And there's I think there's a third one too that I just can't see right now off the top of my head. So it's a good way to pick up some of these pretty cool weapons that are on here. Um, as well as some boosters and some extra silver bonuses, and some vehicles that you might have missed out on. But my biggest complaint with the veteran boxes is I see it countless times over and over again. Um, it incentivizes newer players that just might have started the game not too long ago. Maybe they only have a little bit of the research completed in one faction and they haven't even touched the other ones yet, but they're like, oh, I really want to get some of these squads. These look really cool. So instead of using their silver, not a lot of their silver, or they're not getting a whole lot anyways, but they're using that silver instead of upgrading their own squads, you know, um, doing everything that you really need to do whenever you're playing a BR, buying new troops, buying new weapons, upgrading your weapons, yada yada yada, um, buying the newer vehicles, whatever the case may be. Instead of using that silver to purchase it, they're just buying these boxes at a chance of getting a squad instead. So that obviously negatively is going to impact their experience because they're wasting all their silver, and most of the time, they're only getting boosters or maybe slight amount of silver or nickname decorators or portraits or whatever the case is. They're just blowing all their silver on these veteran boxes and not upgrading their squads like they really should be, and upgrading their guns and equipment, making sure like all their soldiers have at least a med kit, yada yada yada. So yeah, I think that's the biggest issue, honestly, with the silver chests, and I think that's probably why they're time gated. So like there's only 10 days left on these current silver boxes, but for me the silver boxes are really the only reason why I still play the game, because I have everything researched, all the stuff researched. And as you can see, I'm not buying any right now because I'm kind of tinkering around with other stuff and other BRs that I never really played a lot with, and to me that's for Japan, like I never really played the flamethrowers, so I'm kind of going back and the lower BR Japan, trying to upgrade these squads, test out the flamethrowers, which are really bad, by the way. They're pretty crap, especially the low BR ones. And like using stuff like the Type 4. I never used it because it was BR4 before, but I'm upgrading using a lot of them in all my other squads right now. And snipers. I never really used snipers before, so I'm kind of trying them out right now, see how I like them, whatnot. But yeah, that's the biggest issue I think is the loot boxes for newer players, because they see that, oh, so and so got this squad, or I got this squad one time, so I gotta dump all my silver that I ever get now into these silver boxes, and it's like, you need to you need to be upgrading your stuff before you're jumping into getting an event squad that you're probably not going to use anyways, because you play US and you got a squad for Japan that you're never going to touch. So that's kind of the problem I see with silver boxes. Um, and one of the things that I would like to see in the future too is um, kind of incentivize veterans that have been playing the game for a very long time and have spent millions and millions and millions of silver on these boxes and still haven't got squads yet. That's funny to me, honestly. Alone, guys that have been playing 5,000, 6,000 battles and they don't have all the squads yet because just their luck of the draw or whatever. So one thing I think they should do, and kind of incentivize people to continue playing, remove the silver boxes from the store. Keep them available to players, like they're doing now, which I think they're giving access. It seems like recently it's like once every 4 or 5 months they kind of come back around. Keep that the way it is, but to kind of keep veteran players interested and engaged and invested into the game, that have every single thing bought, every single squad upgraded, whatever, yada yada yada. Instead of giving these research points, this excess research, and I don't have a lot for the other factions because I had like over a mil for all factions because I play everybody, but I turned a lot of it into silver because I was trying to get the squad here. I really wanted the squad and I finally got it after freaking 3 mil silver or whatever it was, but I finally got it. But yeah, so give people that don't really have anything else to progress to. Let's say maybe if it is the only situation, the only circumstances, if you have nothing else to research, right? If all your research is completed for every faction and every nation, well, maybe they should give a bonus that if you play, um, if all those requirements are met and you have researched everything, um, maybe if you play with join in the army, right? Kind of incentivizing vets to not just play the faction that they mainly main, but with joining the army, maybe, give them a silver chest for completing a match with joining the army on. I think that's a great way to get some vets to keep playing the game. Sure, definitely would for me, besides grinding out the battle pass. If I know that I could play joining the army and I can get a silver chest at the end of every game, and I have literally every other thing researched, I think that'd be good, because that's what these boxes are really for, and that's what I think I'd like to stress the most, is that, like, these are for veteran players. These are for guys, for players, for people that have finished researching everything in the game and don't have anything else to do. They're just supposed to dump all their silver that they just have sitting around on these boxes. So if you want to take these away after 10 days, cool. That's fine. I get it, because you don't want newer players dumping all their silver onto these. Completely understandable. And I think it's actually necessary. But give people that have researched everything and are completely done and don't really have anything else to do, give them a reason to keep hopping in, completing 3 or 4 games a day. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I got. This whole thing took way too long. This is probably over an hour and a half long, so I don't even know how I'm gonna condense this, but I'll try to split it up so people can just kind of skip around to whatever parts that they want to listen to or whatnot. But yeah.